Alright guys, I'm going to show you how to change your brakes on the 98 to 03 Dodge Durango. I don't think it really matters whether you have a V6, a 5.2, 5.9, or the 4.7 like mine here. This is 2001 4.7 four-wheel drive. I don't think it really matters, it's all going to be pretty much the same. So we're just going to change out the pads and rotors today. Okay, you want to loosen your lug nuts before you lift it, and then once you have it securely on jack stands or blocks, go ahead and take off your lug nuts. Alright, then take your wheel off. If it's stuck, you can hit around the back side at the edge of the wheel with a wooden block and a hammer. To remove the caliper under these rubber things here. Oh, there you go. So that's what you're dealing with, basically an Allen head. My set does not fit 8 and 5/16 is too big, and the next sizes I have down is too small. But this fits real snug. I have a bunch of these, so that's what I'm going to use to get it off. This is a T45, but that's an Allen head if you have the correct size. Okay, there they are. That worked, no problem. So these are not only the mounting bolts for the caliper, but it's also with the slide pins for the caliper as well. So now I should be able to pry this caliper off the rotor. This is just kind of like a little retaining arm. You're just gonna have to, oh shit, pop it off so that you can get your caliper off, because it's going to be holding it back. There we go. Okay, once you get the rotor off, or sorry, caliper, you want to set it on a block, something like this. Be careful not to bust up the line, and you don't want to let it hang by that, because you don't want it to bend or pinch any of the line. And then your rotor will come off at this point. If it's seized up, you're just going to have to hit around on it with a hammer. Alright, just note the orientation of the pads before you pop them out. This one just comes out like that. It's got those little clips that hold it into the piston there. And then this outer one's going to have these little arms you're going to have to slide and work off the edge to get it out. I'm going to need both hands for that. Alright, so if you're putting new pads or rotors on, you're going to need to push in this piston so that you can make clearance for the new thicker pads or thicker rotor or both. So you just put a big C-clip on it like this. You're going to turn it and push that piston in. Alright, so that's all the way in. It'll take a moderate amount of effort to push that piston in. If it's really stiff or you can't get it down all the way, then you either have a bad caliper or a bad brake line. Okay, so there's the new rotor. I know what you're thinking. What? Racing brakes on a Durango? Yes. This thing stops like a beast. Even up until the point where it started grinding on the other side because I ran out of pad. It's also especially handy when you're towing. So be sure not to touch the mating surface. If you get rotors from a store, they're most likely going to be covered in some grease so they don't rust during storage, and you're going to need to take brake parts cleaner and clean that off. But these are, I believe, zinc coated or some shit like that, so I don't have to do that. I order them online. So these are dry. Just don't get any grease on the mating surfaces. Same with your pad. Okay, remember this 3-prong one's going to go in the piston. Just going to have to work it in there. I think I need both hands for that. Just show you a little tip here. Sometimes these little tabs are a real pain in the ass to get in there, and on this one, and I've done this multiple times, if you have to, just bend them in a little bit. That way you can get it popped in, which is what I've done with this one. Then it'll just pop right in. And see? Still tight. If you're having difficulty and doesn't quite fit, just bend them in a little bit. Okay. And then this one, you gotta work these over the edge. It's a real bitch to do with one hand in recording. Okay, make sure they're set all the way. I noticed if I go too far, you can see those little pins on the back of the pad there. Maybe, depending on lighting. There's a little pin there, you can see it. It goes in that hole. I actually pushed too far to where it went below the hole and it was popping the pad out. So slide these over here and get your pins lined up with the holes. So that's fully installed. Now we just got to work it over the rotor. Okay, so with the piston in all the way, you shouldn't have any clearance issues. Just gonna have to kind of work it on there. Make sure your tabs line up. Still gotta work on this one a little. Alright, there you go, fully installed. So this should be about what you're looking at. Just double check, make sure your pads are still set properly. There is going to be a little play looseness from pushing that in. And then we just need to put our, where'd they go? Retaining pins back in. You really gonna want to put some grease on them. Lube them up so they slide in there nice and freely. These ones are pretty dry and nasty. And that's going to keep your brakes from sticking, and especially from wearing out this inside pad more than the outside, although that's kind of inevitable because it's a single piston caliper, but that'll definitely help. Alright, so both top and bottom, see where we at here. You're just gonna have to wiggle this caliper around as you push against and turn this until you find the hole, and it'll start going in like so. Just make sure you don't cross thread it. Alright, that was a fucking nightmare. So to get this retaining clip back on, I kind of had to line this up, shove it in with my hands, and with the other hand pry these bars around. And you got to make sure the little tab is all the way in there, not sitting on the edge ready to shoot out at you. I did that. Hit my hand with the fucking crowbar, trying a different way. So that's the best way. Shove them in those holes as far as you can get them with your other hand. Work these arms around. Once it's set, go back over it, make sure they're all the way in. You probably have to just tap them in. Alright, if you're you just snug these down, not Superman tight, but nice and snug. If you want a torque spec, you're going to be looking for about 40 foot-pounds. Alright, going to throw the wheel back on now. Alright, with the wheel back on, you're going to want to do a torque sequence on these, which guarantees that your wheel goes on perfectly flush, which makes your rotor go on perfectly flush against the hub, and it'll keep you from getting the warped rotor symptom. Is if it doesn't all tighten down nice and flat like it should, then your rotor will actually wobble, and that's how you get a warped rotor. So once you have them all on there, you want to put just a little bit of weight on the vehicle. If I can turn this damn thing. Just a little bit, that way the wheel doesn't go cockeyed with the full weight, but you need a little weight to start torquing these down. Okay, so you're going to want to go in like a crisscross star pattern, never from one to the very next adjacent one. You want to go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you want to do it in 3 steps. First step, you want to do about 30 foot-pounds, 60 foot-pounds, and then 90 foot-pounds, and then you should be done. Okay, then as you're torquing them, if the wheel spins on you, then just allow a little bit more weight onto it, just enough to where the wheel doesn't spin. Alright, then once you're done, you get your wheel torque back on. There's going to be a gap and looseness between the pads and the new rotor. So you're going to want to start your vehicle. Make sure there's plenty of brake fluid. And then lightly, very lightly, you're going to push this pedal a few times, your brake pedal. Just like this. Just real light, no more than like halfway down. Real light a couple times until it firms up. You don't want to push it all the way down or push it too quick, because you can actually trick your ABS system into thinking that you blew a brake line, and it'll lock out the front wheels on some vehicles and it'll go to the rear. So you want to just take it slow just to get that fluid pushed back down the line so your pads will go flush with your rotors, and then you're good to go. Otherwise, you got to drive it, step on the brake for the first time, it's going to go to the floor because there's still a gap between the pads and the rotors. So just take your time, nice and easy, a few times, no more than halfway down. It'll firm up on you, and then you're good to go.